Right, hey everyone, I'm Clue. So, I thought we'd take a break from the High Seas card reviews and have a little bit of fun with some mock High Seas sealed. So, nothing too fancy, just a random card generator, random pack generator, random number generator, essentially, right? So, I plugged in all the data that I can think of. So, using the rates from the hunted, along with everything that should be short printed and doesn't appear as, say, a rainbow foil. So, for instance, allies don't appear as rainbow foils. Equipment is obviously short printed and doesn't appear as rainbow foils. Same with the amulets. So hopefully this is majorly accurate, right? But each pack contains 11 commons, 1 rare, 1 rare majestic, and 1 rainbow foil. And again, I've included the rates using the hunted. So we can basically use this to randomize a pack and then take a crack at High Seas Seal, just so that we can, prepare ourselves and go through the process together, right? So close my eyes, I'll spin this a few times so I'm not just, aiming for high rolling majestics, because you can get around 3 at best, right? 2 normal and then 1 rainbow foil. So we'll stop now. How do we do? We got 1, 2 majestics. I think that's fair, right? I did randomize it. So yeah, now the fun part of me putting together this list of cards visually for your enjoyment. Right, so unexpectedly, that took a lot longer to assemble. But hopefully the visual splendor is good enough, right? I probably should have just made the lists on Fabrary, right? I mean, we'll probably end up doing the decks on Fabrary anyway. But pack 1, right? I don't think there's anything really of note. Maybe the Sentry for Mech, right? So if you can get to 2 cog generation on your opponent's turn, then if you're blocking with 2 cards, you can recoup 1 card. So that is definitely nice in limited or sealed or even draft, right? Pack 2, Tip the Barkeep, right? It is definitely nice. It's again a go again. If we're struggling for gold, then obviously tapping your hero is not a big deal, but the whole treasure island mechanic makes me think that we won't be struggling for gold, and maybe aside from Marlin, you definitely want to be using Gravy, and you definitely want to be generating the cog with Puffin. Pack 3. Nope, I don't think anything juicy here. Pack 4, Chum, the friendly first mate, so probably leaning towards Gravy just off of that. We've seen a few allies here or there, so yeah, that's definitely a good one to get, especially since it's basically an extra 6 life, right, in, again, a 20 life format. Pack 5, Lubricate, although you'll never really get the full value out of Lubricate, right, because I don't ever think you'll get enough. Surprisingly, God, you know what, actually, one thing that I probably didn't account for, and probably no one has, is whatever rates copper cogs are at, right? Because copper cogs are definitely not at a standard rates, I would highly assume. But then we have pack 6 and Barnacle. Sky Sim is nice, right? Money All Your Life, I guess, is really good. It's either just that extra chunk of damage or yonking gold, right? Tit for tat, actually, the shut off, maybe. That's a little bit better. Pack 7, Hoist them up and crash down the gates. Yeah, decent. Shelly, and another Barnacle. So we're definitely stockpiling for Necro. Pack 8, Throw Caution to the Wind is interesting, especially, again, leaning towards Gravy Bones because you're more in that blue. I think if you're doing Puffin and Marlin, you're not necessarily leaning towards blue unless you can, go for Hammerhead. Hammerhead's definitely a very, very interesting question when it comes to Marlin and when it comes to Limited, because, yeah, it's awesome having a +4 pump, right? Just to dump cards into, especially in a 30-card deck. But then you're really relying on gold to load, so that could be a bit of a difficulty. Although there is notably not any arsenal disruption aside from the Majestic, I believe, correct? Right? So generally speaking, you will be fine loading an arrow, right? And just having that 1 turn delay, if you will. But that is the last of the 8 packs, right? So now, another thing to remember is along with the 8 packs for sealed, we get a full set of equipment. So Blue Sea, Tricorn, Buccaneer's Bounty, Fish Fingers, and a Peg Leg. And of course, the tokens to make everything run, right? So Puffin, Gravy, Marlin, and their respective weapons. You also, I believe, get Sticky Fingers. That's one of the flip sides. So don't take my word for that, right? But obviously, to play Scurvy, you have to find him in a pack. If you don't find him in a pack, you cannot pivot to him, right? He has to be pulled as a rare. So then comes the fun part, organizing, right? And this is a whole mess of cards to organize. So generally speaking, the correct starting point is most likely sorting it by type, right? So we have Mech, Necro, Ranger, Pirate, Generics, and then Junk Equipment. We pulled another Buccaneer's Bounty, and then Captain's Coat, and Captain's Coat is basically worse Buccaneer's Bounty because it has conditional, and I don't think it has the block at all. I don't know, it's covered on my screen, so when we say it, right? Again, this is a lot of cards to try and present adequately to you guys, right? But from there, right, Generally, sort by pitch is kind of nice, right? So, yeah, nice and organized, but I think we should probably zero in on the different classes, because while we do have the most Necromancer cards, 17, right, the question is it actually going to be functional? So we really have to look through the cards and decide on quality versus quantity, right? So just because we got ourselves 17 Necro and even Chum the Friendly First Mate, we might have an overall better quality, right, in something else. So don't, unless you really want to force it, right? If you're trying to just have fun, play who you want, right? If you're there to try and win, obviously you need to buckle down and look at the stat lines as well as the synergy between cards, because there is a lot going on in high seas, right? There's a lot of different mechanics at play, different reasons take blue, different reasons take yellow. Heck, Treasure Island in itself messes with breakpoints, right? Because getting 1 damage across, getting 2 damage across, presenting 1 damage, presenting 2 damage, it all has different value now because of Treasure Island and that possibility of generating the gold from it, right? So your opponent probably won't even want to let through a 1, right? If it nets you that Treasure Island. But we'll start with mech. So I like to group things in 3 categories, right? So we have our attack actions, we have our actions, and then we have our defensive cards. But more particularly for Puffin and what we're trying to stick together, it obviously revolves around Cogs. So we have a nice line of 5 Cog go-again attacks, essentially, right? So our Sky Simmers and Cloud Skiffs, right? They all have tap a Cog to gain +1 or go again. So either just playing them in conjunction, right? Go again buff is kind of nice. It's probably actually going to be go again buff. I don't think you go 3-4 wide, right? You can probably add in the pistol. But generally speaking, having, again, that plethora of go again as Puffin, as well as the Cog generation, is what we really want to look at, right? As for Cog generation, tying the screws, gold wing turbines, and a lubricate to reset them. So lubricate essentially allows you to, obviously, you have 1 cog, you can now use it twice. You have 2 cogs, you can use it 4 times. And that is definitely fantastic. It's definitely strong, but it's that question of whether or not you can get adequately to that number of cogs. And I think we could, right? With tying the screws and gold wing turbine, right? We should be able to sit at 1 cog comfortably and then hopefully get to 2 cogs, right? Because overall, if we look at everything in totality, right, the defensive cards and these cog procs, so that's 9 in total, so we should be finding 1 every single turn, so that should be converting a cog back into a new cog with our defensive cards, or generating a new cog through the other one. So yeah, definitely a nice set of cards for mech, and I think it's a reasonable case to actually play mech, but then we have the Necro stuff, and Necro stuff is probably a little bit better, right? So discard is the big mechanic for Gravy, right? So stuff that allows us to discard or destroy the top card of our deck is fantastic. It's probably going to be a bit more targeted to your hand, right? Being in sealed, right? You don't just want to mill your 30 card deck to oblivion when we only have, 6 allies, 6 Watery Grave cards. But again, the discard to then be able to play it and set it up is still really nice. So then, once again, we circle back to the go again, because we want to be able to present an attack with go again, and then play an ally, and then probably swing with that ally, right? And that is still a really nice, comfortable turn with the Jittery Bones and the Restless Bones, right? So we play one of them, we play a Barnacle, we swing with Barnacle. 4 resources, I think that's manageable, right? And then again, because of the health of Barnacle, it kind of puts us ahead, so we're a bit more relaxed to let damage through. So overall, this is definitely a nice selection of cards. More of the go-agains than just the straight buff cards for our other discard, right? So in the case of Angry Bones or Burly Bones, we're playing them, and then the next turn we're playing our ally. So it's that loss of tempo, or rather the better tempo through the go again ones that definitely will help our case. So yeah, strong Necro package, and then Ranger definitely didn't do too well with the Ranger card. So we have a few big arrows ish, right? I mean, a 0-5 or a 1-6 is definitely nice, right? So with Red Spine Manta, we're loading them face up. With Marlin, we're loading them face up. So generally speaking, these should always be procced, right? So dry powder shot and a headshot, definitely decent enough, right? We only got 1 pump, pulling the big guns, right? Yellow, +2, but still a load. So can we string together enough attacks? Well, not really, right? Utility, scouting shots, right? To try and look at the top card of our deck and try and plan. Netting shot is actually something really nice, and this turning off your opponent is actually really, really good. The netting shot directly functional against Gravy, not so much Puffin, but it's still a nice safety net, basically, right? To swap off your ally, because I doubt in Sealed that Gravy Bones is getting, a whole swath of allies to throw at you. And then Salvage Shot, again, 30 card deck, so being able to recycle is definitely really nice. Swift Shot and Sick'em Shot are sadly our only 2 go again arrows, although Swift Shot is definitely really nice if you find a bunch of them. definitely a reasonable case of playing Marlin. And then for a headpiece, Patch the Hole, allowing us to return a card from our arsenal to our hand. Again, playing around Arsenal Disruption, I think you'd still just rather the draw, especially since it procs Marlin's ability off of the base head that you get, right, with your token package. So yeah, Patch the Hole is a bit of a miss. And overall, this collection of Ranger isn't quite doing it for me, right? So that brings us to our Pirates and our generic cards. So these are what shall shore up the gaps and help flesh out different packages. So again, we have a few different things going on. We have Treasure Island and its whole mechanic of generating us gold. So these cards that allow us to put more counters on Treasure Island to try and get that damage across and then get ourselves gold off of Treasure Island. Definitely impactful, and it is this whole idea of island control, which does sound really fun, and hopefully it is, right? Once we actually start playing. So don't undervalue these cards simply because they're just finishes, right? They are really decent in Sealed. Even Thieving Varmints, where we're reducing the counters on Treasure Island, right? Again, it's about denying your opponent gold and getting the gold for yourself. Aside from that, we have Chart the Course, right? Which does, in a sense, help with, say, Marlin and Pumps, right? So the first attack turn gets +3. We also have the Blues. The third attack gets +3. That feels a little bit rough, but it also, on the reverse side, would feel really, really good in Puffin, right? Because this can go on to our weapon. So yeah, a little bit for everyone here, which then brings us to High Tide and Running Blues, right? So our Swift Waters, our Battalions, and our HMSs, right? So go again off of High Tide would be beautiful. I think it fits comfortably well into Gravy more so, again, because you have other ways to pitch, right? In sort of a low-cost deck like Puffin, it's going to be a bit hard to get to those 2 blues to give our Swift Water go again. But if you're taking a collection of these cards to utilize together, then obviously they work a lot better, right? A Swiftwater into a Battalion would be fantastic. Swiftwater into our Barracuda, fantastic, right? So yeah, them by themselves are a package. And then of course they go in tandem with the other cards that want to find blues. So for instance, we have Saltwater Swell. When the stacks reveal the top card of your deck, if it's blue, you get to pitch it. So you have 2 really useful cases there, right? One, we have being able to read the top card of our deck, which is definitely impactful. And then if it's blue, we have generating that extra set of resources, which can definitely come in handy. So yeah, you will be rewarded for taking more blues, right? You'll be rewarded for taking awkward breakpoints because of Treasure Island. So you really have to think of all the cards in totality, right? Rather than just going, this is clearly Necro because I have the most Necro cards. There's just a lot of cross functionality. Throw Caution to the Wind, find a blue, prevents 3, definitely nice. And Tip the Barkeep as a free go again on anything. Definitely, again, leaning towards with Gravy with that one, but still nice, especially in case of, the rough arrow situation that we have with Marlin. Then we have our Mutinies, right, which allow us to, again, deny our opponent gold, which is definitely something you want, and then gain some sort of buff. So, unfortunately, we didn't hit any of the go agains, otherwise they would be fantastic, but still, giving your next attack +2 or Overpower can definitely be helpful, especially Overpower because you want to trigger Treasure Island. So the idea of yoinking the gold from your opponent and then yoinking the counters of Treasure Island, going to their turn, kind of good, right? Swindler's Grift, more Necromancer stuff, but, overall, the discard and draw, right? It triggers Marlin, so that's good. Puffin, it's a little bit rough because you will just eventually mill out, but, getting the gold for your Cog feeds into other things. If you get a really, really solid go again basis, then there is a definite case for Puffin, right? The problem is you will run out of cards. You've got discard, you've got her own draw mechanic, so it is just a beatdown race, whereas both Gravy and Marlin, definitely a bit more mid-rangey. Spell for the week, you may turn a card in a graveyard face down. If it's yellow, create a gold token. So while you may look at a card like that and go, well, this is a use case for Gravy, right? Especially in Sealed with a limited card pool, turning off their allies is a huge hit, right? Which is, again, going back to where go again, playing your allies straight away is kind of a bigger deal. But you can also hit your own cards. There's not any return, right? So switching off your own cards is absolutely fine. Again, you want to maintain gold because gold feeds into everything else. Then we have I say that and then we go into the other set of cards, which are if you control less gold than your opponent. This gets +2, this gets Overpower. So these cards, definitely interesting. They can definitely be useful. They're all predominantly yellow, which is a bit rough. If they were all blue, I'd say they're fantastic, right? So if you feel like you're not going to be able to control Treasure Island, there's a case for them. But to me, personally, I think they just get sidelined because they're a bit too unpredictable and too fairly statted, right? If they were slightly overrate with that mechanic, sure, but I don't think any of them are super fantastic. Like Gold Hunter Longboat, Sean 0-5, no go again. It's okay, but if it was a 0-6, God, yes, I would definitely take that. Or at the very least, if it was a 0-5 that block 3, sure. But yeah, a little bit awkward because of the yellowness again. Lean into blues for High Tide, or just better yellows in general. And then you have mostly reds for Treasure Island, right? So then that leaves us with the generics, right? So Strike Gold, way to generate gold, just a nice 0-4. Again, this is your turn closer, so fits a bit more in Puffin than I'd say Marlin or Gravy, just because, again, Gravy, you really want to be setting up your allies. So, there's a possible case for just taking a beatdown Gravy deck, right? But never hurts to get a little bit more gold. Money over your life, a little bit better, right? Since it will yoink gold, or at the very least pressure that 2 damage, which is definitely really, really solid in 20 life formats, right? Tit for tat, again, turning off your opponent, beautiful. Untapping yourself, fantastic. Also, again, in Gravy and probably Puffin, since it nets you that draw. Marlin, again, Harpoons. It feels like the Ghost should be leaning into the Harpoons with Hammerhead as one build of the deck. I wish there were a bit more accessible Harpoons to go along with that. I suppose that's where the common set, but maybe that has an upticked rate, similar to what I'd expect Cog. Again, something else I didn't account for, but still a very nice utility card that, again, will impact your opponent's turn. So you've got those 3 aspects. Once again, Treasure Island, denying your opponent gold, maintaining your own gold, and then being able to turn off their actual hero ability, right? So Walk the Plank on hit does the same thing, or in the case of Gravy, can target an ally. And then we have just our sort of filler attacks, right? So Ravenous Rabble, Scar for a Scar, or Blow for Blow, some go again if we have less life, if we're losing the battle. Trade in, another use case for Gravy, right? Or again, without the Arsenal Disruption, a nice easy go again. And it's a May, so you don't have to do the discard. But the idea there, and obviously Marlin, you play it, you discard, you draw, you load, so beautiful, and it's a go again. Crash Down the Gate is definitely a really interesting one. So when this attacks a hero, they reveal the top card of the deck. If this has greater than the revealed card, this gets +2, right? And then when this hits a hero, destroy the top card of the deck. So that can be a worst case scenario in Gravy, or it can be really impactful again in a 30 card format. Otherwise, it just seems like it will be a nice big card, right? Especially in the case of, say, the blue that becomes a 3 for 6, but you buff it, or something like that, something you just cycle around. It helps you win that late game. Equipment-wise, the only thing of note is the Quartermaster Boots. So action, pay 2, destroy this. Next non-attack action card you play this turn gets go again. Again, another case of maybe I want to play it in Gravy, right? But, Pegleg giving an attack go again versus this giving, playing a second ally from Graveyard, right? There's thought there. And then we have the Nimbleism line. So Nimby finding a Nimbleism, and then Nimbleism being bashable by Jack Be Nimble or Jack Be Quick, right? So these can definitely make up a solid backbone of your deck. Nimby itself just fetching a blue could be really solid. There are a few different ways to give it go again, right? We haven't seen any flying highs, but they do exist. So it can have a really powerful use case, right? So yeah, another thing to consider, think of them as a total package rather than individually. Raleigh the Coast Guard, nice defensive discard, again, for incentive for Gravy. Siren of Safe Harbor, similarly, although this is still just a solid block, right? You throw it with a 3, you meet the breakpoint, and then you gain the life back. And then on the horizon, right? Just a nice solid block that allows you to read the top card of your deck, right? So, there we go. That's the cards we pulled, and how I usually go about organization, right? So again, think the different categories of cards, so attacks, actions, defensive, and then also the packages that actually align with one another, right? And again, for Puffin, we're looking for those cogs, for gold generation to feed into Puffin's ability. For Gravy, we want discard. For Marlin, we want draw. They usually go either side of one another, right? But let's take a crack at building some decks. Right, so we will build all 3, but we'll go in order of quality, if you will, right? So I definitely think with what we pulled, that Gravy will be the strongest, right? Followed by Puffin, and then maybe I'll be surprised by the Marlin deck, but we have all the equipment, we have all the cards, so let me do an initial tinker with it, right? And just try to organize a little bit so we can go through it. Right, so remember, we're building 30 card decks, exactly 30 card, right? So you will have plenty to choose from, right? But here's the assortment I've gone with for Gravy. Puffin and Marlin's done as well, so we'll discuss them shortly, right? But again, we'll zero on Gravy first, and we'll do them one by one. So the general idea that we're going for here is just set up and swing, right? So basically, I have all the go again stuff, right? So idea being attack with a go again, ally swing, right? That's the simple crux of a turn that we want to go for. So for instance, the Swift Waters are fine because even in the sense of setting up an ally beforehand, if we're pitching into, say, Chubb, right? We can pitch 2 blues, potentially, into him, right? He's played from the graveyard, hopefully, and then we can go Swiftwater, swing with him, something like that, right? So that's the general idea. I've cut out, or rather, I've sidelined, right? So essentially, here's the whole section of cards I don't think have anything to do with the deck, right? And then here's the selection of cards that are maybes, and then here's the actual deck that we've gone with, right? So for instance, all the Burly Bones, all the discard or destroy the top card of our deck to get X, I've put to the side, and again, sticking with the go again. We have enough allies where I think we should be fine, right? It's 6 out of 30, so yeah, it's close to 1 every turn, but maybe not, right? So either reading the top card of our deck through Compass and getting it that way, or just discarding it again, it in Sealed isn't as rough, right? Losing the card from hand. So I think that's fine. It's more just about being able to play them straight away and establish that board state, right? So we don't want to, take a turn to set up our graveyard, then play them next turn, right? I want to be able to attack, play, right? So with that in mind, I think I can organize this a little bit better to showcase that, right? I'll do so with the other decks. We'll speed up how we go through Puffin and Marlin, but to go over it a bit more succinctly, right? We have our allies and utility. We have our get 'em in the bin, right? So either discard or destroy. And then we have our blue powers. The only thing to note is I did swap the trade-ins with the Scar for a Scar, right? Because I think the trade-ins are a bit more worthwhile. I would have liked if they were blue, right? Because again, it's that awkward break point where the opponent probably still has to block because of Treasure Island. So really, really nice to have those blue ones, right? But decent chunk of allies. We have 6 in total. So again, decent chance of finding them, and they are mostly the cheap cost ones, right? As in to swing with once they're established, not Shelly for 3/4. 3/4 is still kind of nice because we are blue heavy. Not that we can see the count properly anymore, right? Then for the utility, we have some stealing and basically buffing, so giving our allies overpower. It's not any real big payoff, but still nice to do, and a +2. Then we have Throw Caution to the Wind, since again we're blue heavy. Tip the Barkeep, the Gold Kiss Rum can definitely come in handy if we can maintain a board. Otherwise, it's still a quality 3 block, right? A blue 3 block. We really want a bunch of 3 blocks. And then Tit for a Tat, turn them off. And again, just an extra cycle for us is really, really nice. Then for the discard, again, I've taken all the actual go again ones, not the ones that just buff themselves, because the idea is we play our allies instantly, right? Because then it establishes pressure on the board for our opponent to deal with, saving us our life, right? And again, we want to be able to swing with them for that value, rather than, that awkward case of, well, this is my turn, I've got an ally into the graveyard, I'm not playing him until next turn, so you're just coming back at me, then I set him up, then you knock him down, and so forth and so on, right? Relative Rear Guard, a nice defensive card to yoink some value out of them. So converting an ally into 3 block, definitely really good. Trade in, set up into the arsenal, then it's a go again, that again discards similarly to Jittery Bones, right? Swindler's Grift. So it's not a 3 block, it's not a go again, but it's a blue and I need the blues because I do think the high tide payoffs are worthwhile. So even again, the Swift Water, right? Play an ally from graveyard, use that to stack up the pitch, and then still have a go again attack is nice, right? And then just Barracuda because it's 3 block, and the high tide's really, really strong on it. I think I cut just the +2 because it was only a 2 block as well, right? So yeah, I think that's overall decent. You don't have as many good starters. So for instance, Blue Sea Tricorn feeds into Marlin really well. The Buccaneer's Bounty, a lot of the cog generation or the buffs need that 1 cost, so that really helps. Fish Fingers is just decent. Pegleg is okay. Maybe if I had more allies, I'd be tempted to take the other one we got, right? The other legs, they were generic. Quartermaster, that's what I'm trying to think of, right? So the Quartermaster legs were pay 2, Mage Master, basically, but also the ability 1 block. I feel like that's maybe decent enough, but in a pinch, this is a go again for the Griffs, I guess the Barracuda, right? It's a lot of resources trying to stick into it, but there's workable cases for it. But yeah, this is a maybe, right? Especially with the 1 block. It's really good in the case of, I have multiple allies set up in the graveyard, so I want to play a bunch of them straight away. I'll do it over here because it's kind of cut off, right? There you go. But there we go. That's did I miss a card? I just noticed that. No, it's not counting the maybes. Sorry, I've renamed them, so it's really awkward to see. Yeah, no, I haven't missed a card because there's 6 and 5. But on to Puffin and Marlin. So for Puffin, here's the deck, right? I'm taking every mech card we pulled, and then the inventory, the maybes, and then the well, this is the maybes, but this is the I don't want anything to do with them, right? So yeah, let me clean up and organize it so we can go through it. Okay, so for Puffin, we have our Cogs, our attacks and our buffs, and then also tip the barkeep, right? I don't think I'd ever really want to use tip the barkeep. It's either just a pitch ball or a 3-block. Again, 3 blocks. Pretty good quality in this set, right? Especially on blue, right? Okay, so Cogs. We have a decent chunk, although that should be there. Yeah, so 10 Cog-ish cards. So we have straight up just Cog generation, right? Through Goldwind Turbines, our Sentries, and our Galvanized. Tip for tats, kinda, right? So again, tapping them, untapping us to then be able to create another golden cog, crank it, get a card. Beautiful, right? Converting tip for a tat just into the crank, the second crank, would be really nice. It's kind of something that I think Puffin will struggle with, is you're not really going to comfortably get to that second crank. It's more of a defensive utility, really, right? So, for instance, we get Sentry and a Galvanize at the same time. We get 2 cogs off of that. We don't have any to go into our next turn, unfortunately, right? Because I wish they had, more steam counter, right, in the Galvanize sense, or some sort of mechanic to, again, enable... We're on a tangent. I understand what they're going for, right? Because it can be really strong to be able to spend 2 cards to block and then get a card back. But you're losing all the cogs to then feed into everything else. Generally speaking, we're maintaining 1 cog, right? We're not really going into Puffin's draw, but, hopefully some scenario. So, yeah, either maintaining cogs or reusing cogs. So, tying the screws or a lubricate allows us to essentially act like we have multiple cogs, right? Then for the attacks, go again, and our mech stuff. So, either way, we do have a few chain closers, but this is probably where the blunderbuss really comes into play. So because Spitfire has the cog cost on its activation, not just its buff, it is, to me, going to be fairly rough unless you get a whole bunch of cog support to really make it work, because feeding the cog into, again, skimmers and your skiffs, right, which are commons, right, to get go again or a +1 is fantastic, because that's my chain. This is either a go again into just a 4, or if I do have the 2 cogs, a go again into a 5, right? And that's nicer. But if that's not the go, we have our expeditions to close off the chain, blow for a blow, or even sky for a sky. If we can get the go again off that, then we can go into, say, a pistol, right? If we don't get the go again proc off of it, then it's still just our closing argument for the turn, right? Saltwater Swell. Whether this works or not, again, it is an awkward one for your opponent that generally they will have to block because of Treasure Island. It will put a counter on Treasure Island, and then if they let the 1 damage through, you'll get the gold. And getting that gold as Puffin, again, is really significant because we want the cogs. So, yeah, I really like Saltwater Swell. 3 block, it's a blue, and again, it's that awkward go again, right? That could net you more resources, which would be really, really helpful. And then for the buffs, Nimblism, since all our attacks are low cost anyway. The Mutinies, I'm only taking 1 of the Overpower, because Overpower doesn't really do much here. But the +2 is definitely nice. Chart the Course, I definitely think we can get to 3 attacks. So a blue 3 buff is just really cool, right? So this can work with our Blunderbuss or Spitfire if you do take Spitfire. So I do think that's definitely applicable. And, if we can't work it in, then obviously we just pitch it away, right? So, yeah. Solid. I don't think as good as the Gravy deck, but still solid nonetheless. I wish there was a bit more interaction with some of the equipment. So, like, for instance, the legs work really well with Gravy, right? The head works really well with Marlin. I guess the resource is Puffin's Go, and then obviously Fish Finger's just all around nice, but it feels like this could have been a little bit different. You really want to find the Unicycle. The Unicycle just seems really, really good, right? Being able to untap a cog. Because, yeah, I think you will really struggle to get to, 2+ cogs, unless you get really, really good cards, right? That you're just completely fed on Mechanologist. Otherwise, it's seemingly plan around 1 cog, right? Which is where then Blunderbuss really comes into play over Spitfire, right? And then again, the go again attacks. So yeah, we are trying to go wide as Puffin here, but still, I think it's solid, right? So that leaves Marlin. So here's the look-see, right, for what we're cutting. But you know the drill. Let me organize it. All right, so we're taking the Hammerhead Harpoon Cannon, right? And I really, really like this as a fallback because you don't need a lot to actually make it work, right? With Red Spine Manta, obviously you want to go again. So you can go, Red Spine Manta arrow, and then you can go into Marlin arrow, right? And then draw maybe a 3rd arrow or something. I don't know, crazy like that to me. You really want to be able to go wide. I did not do that. I got 2 go again arrows, right? So we got the Swift Shot and the Sikkim Shot, right? So yeah, Hammerhead Harpoon Cannon just as a nice way to either set up High Tide, which is really good, right? Especially with the Swift Waters as the go again. or just to make a big arrow, right? Because it doesn't have to be a harpoon. A harpoon with overpower will definitely be nice, because then it'll allow you to continue to cycle with gold, most likely, because you'll get the damage across. But this just with, say, salvage shot, right? We run through our deck, and we're just going 2 blues, hammerhead, salvage shot, 2 blues, hammerhead, salvage shot, right? So either they give their whole hand, or they're just letting it go each time. So yeah, there's potential to it, right? But the lack of go again is definitely rough. So we have 1 load on board thanks to our Blue Sea Tricorn, which is definitely nice. We have 1 go again on board, so again we're incentivized a little bit more to take blues for them and their payoff, right? But other than that, we have again our go big, so dry powder shot 0.5, headshot 1.6, double shot again reusable 1.5. Scouting shots definitely help us look for what we want. And then some high tide, right? Especially with the 3 block again. Then for our utility, we have chart, of course. I'm not taking the blue because I definitely don't think we could ever get to a 3rd attack comfortably. Call in the big guns. I wish we had a bit more of the pumps, right? Because there's 3 or so, right? So yeah, a bit of a shame. Definitely didn't want us to go Marlin for this, right? On the horizon, again, block and look, definitely nice. And then mutiny, blue buffs, steal a gold. We definitely want gold. Hammerhead, we want to really feed into our harpoon, right? It's a bit of a shame that it's either 2 gold or wait. But again, this being sealed, they're not really being arsenal disruption, right? Unless you're the unlucky bastard who gets conquered. You can generally sit on the arrow. So the idea there was make Goldfin Harpoon, sit on it, and then you're just playing 1 turn behind. But then you're in a really nice spot because it's just find the blues for Hammerhead and go Goldfin Harpoon for, it's a 2, right? So 6 overpower. So that should definitely comfortably maybe net you Treasure Island gold to then continue going back and forth, right? So yeah, that's the hope at the very least. Otherwise, again, just the fillers. So Saltwater Swell, if it hits, great. If it doesn't, oh well. But again, it's more so about setting up high tide, right? So in a pinch, we Hammerhead, Swiftwater, Arrow that we set up previously, and that's, to me, an okay turn, right? Very expensive turn, but an okay turn, right? We don't. How many zeros do we have? 2, 3, 4. Maybe I want the netting. I think that's a 0 as well. Maybe I want another 0 arrow. But yeah, there we go. The last thing to discuss is probably just equipment, right? You have a nice selection of equipment, but you also have the starting 4 pieces. So debatably, there is just a whole bunch of junk, right? It's definitely there for draft. But for instance, we have like Captain's Coat. So this is the same as our Buccaneer's Bounty, minus the Blade Break, and has a condition to its gain a resource. Seems bad, right? But maybe in draft, if this is what you find, this is what you find. But generally speaking, you want Washed Up Wave. Just seems really good. It's a premium block as well, being 2 for sealed. Headstone, Battle-Worn block, and then again feeding into the gravy. Seems really good. It's an instant destroy, so you block, you compass, you instant. Glide fins. Is it? Yes, because of the loading. The load makes it better than Fish Fingers, right? It's the same as Fish Fingers, but you get the Battle Worn, so you get the block. Essentially, anything with Battle Worn is what you really want. You pull anything with Battle Worn, and in most cases, it just floats right on top of the 4 starting pieces of equipment. Nimblism stuff is interesting. Scurvy obviously really likes the Nimblism package. Puffin likes the Nimblism package. You probably don't need quick clicks, but they're really nice. Again, throw it on Nimby itself, and that's really, really cool. But you're probably starting with a Nimblism. There's some fun stuff you can do with it, right? So it's a good go again filler, but you have to hit the Nimblism first. Unicycle, I really like for Puffin. The just untap a cog. I almost wish that you got again a specific piece for each hero, because draw, that's a free load for Marlin, so that's really good. Go again, not Pegleg, go again onto Gravy, that's really good. Puffin's sort of in between with them, right? If she just had a piece that generated a cog, even just 1 cog, I think that would have been really, really nice. But yeah, alas, right? Again, no Arsenal, so no reason to play it, I feel. Maybe there is if you really want to pitch into the high tide cards. Yeah, an Old Knocker and our Captain's Coat, they're just to me worse versions of what you get starting. Bandana does have an issue cycling something back, especially again in a 30 card format, but I still think I'd rather Blade Break. Looking at your top deck plus Blade Break, fantastic. The Mage Master-esque ability on Gravy, good. The Rust Belts, it's essentially the same as Buccaneer's Bounty. It's a little bit worse because you have to tap a cog, and again in sealed, cogs are a bit of a premium. But Battle Worn, again, good for the block. And then, yeah, the really, really standout stuff. Plus, Scurvy if you find him. So, yeah, there we go. long video. Hope you enjoyed. Hope it was worth it. Oh, let me know what you think. Who are you excited to play, right? I'm hoping that Gravy goes as well as this went, right? Because again, I'm going to play Puffin and Marlin properly, but you know, this would be my chance to play Gravy. Maybe I'll pick up the Armory deck and play it once at the very least. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Yeah.